What's up, sports fans? This is Chris with Cast Sports again, and today I'm going to be going over the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs and who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup this season. Starting with the East Division. The East Division with Pittsburgh and the New York Islanders starting off their playoff series. I have a feeling Pittsburgh's going to show up in this series with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. They're always a threat to make a playoff run, or at least ever since I've been watching hockey. The only problem with that is their goaltending is very inexperienced as far as the playoffs go. So that might be a soft spot that New York can possibly take advantage of. Now, New York, on the other hand, they had a magical run last year in the bubble. Last year, they had a ton of success in the postseason, but this season it might not work the same way. They are a little weaker than they were last season, and I have a feeling that there's a few issues going on that are going to prevent them from making a big run. So I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6 games to advance to the next round to face the winner of the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals. Zdeno Chara, it's his old team. He's playing with the Capitals now, so that's going to be a very interesting matchup. Tuukka Rask, goaltender for the Bruins, very good in net. Has always been very good in net since I remember. Hopefully he can keep it up. The Boston Bruins have had a lot of success against the Capitals this season. The Capitals can still make a run with Alexander Ovechkin and some fairly decent goaltending, but can they get consistent? Can they get it consistently? That's the true question here. To me, it's going to be a really close series all throughout. I think Washington in playoffs is always a threat, but I'm going to take Boston in 7 to take the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Boston Bruins in the Eastern Conference final. Okay, we're going to move on to the Central Division, starting off with Carolina and Nashville. Carolina, they have a lot of weapons. Sebastian Aho, they got Svechnikov, they've got Nietzsche, they've got really good goaltending the last few months, and they're one of the top teams in the league and have been all year, just about. It's going to be a struggle for Nashville to get anything going, especially with how many players they've had to go through, how many injuries they've had to go through. I don't know if fatigue from the end of the season is going to affect anything or if the injuries are going to come back to bite them. But I don't really see Nashville making a big run. I mean, Saros is good in goal, and but I just think the Hurricanes have too many weapons. So I'm going to take Carolina in 4. And then I'm going to go through Florida and Tampa Bay, the interstate playoff series. So Tampa Bay, they have Andrei Vasilevsky, and they have a really deadly power play as well. Andrei Vasilevsky, one of the best goalies in the league. I think he's gonna feast on Florida. Outside of Barkov, Florida, I don't think has enough weapons to push past Tampa Bay. And I believe Tampa Bay will take it in 5. I'm going to take Tampa in 5 to set up Carolina versus Tampa Bay in the Central Finals. Now we're going to move on to the Northern Division. Toronto versus Montreal. Toronto has Austin Matthews and several other weapons on their team. They've been high-powered offense pretty much all season. They hit a bit of a rough spell in the last like quarter of the season, but I think they're gonna be just fine going up against Montreal. The only problem is their goalie. Their goalie will be the only issue if Montreal even wants to stand a chance. I don't see it happening. I see this going fairly easily to Toronto. without any problems whatsoever. I'm going to give a game to Montreal just because I think the goaltending is going to be a little lackluster in one of the games. So I'm going to take Toronto in 5, and then we're going to set up Edmonton and Winnipeg. Edmonton has two of the hottest players in the league right now, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. Those two are a deadly combination, and I have a feeling it's going to bring them very far in the playoffs. But can they get a little more help? Postseason hockey is always different than regular season hockey. Postseason any sport is always different. So can they get help? In Winnipeg, they've been on the decline, much like the Islanders have. Their goaltending is a little suspect at times. So I see this being a very clear-cut semifinal. I've got Edmonton in 5. I think it's going to be a fairly easy ride for the top 2 seeds in this division. So that's going to set up Toronto and Edmonton in the northern final. And then we're going to get to the West, where we have our President's Trophy winning Avalanche versus the St. Louis Blues. Now, I know the President's Trophy curse. It hasn't. The winner of the President's Trophy hasn't won in almost 10 years. Well, 8 years. So a long time since the Blackhawks back in 2013. It hasn't happened. So that's going to be a little bit of a, issue to keep an eye on. But Colorado has a lot of weapons. They're really fast. I remember playing them in the Western Conference semifinal last year, and they were speedy. But it's just their defense couldn't keep up. They gave up too many goals, and I think that's going to be another problem here. I don't know if St. Louis can keep them down in this series, but I have a feeling going further in, I think the Avalanche will have an issue giving up too many goals because they're just so fast-paced and they're all up in your face at all times. I just have a feeling it's going to come back and backfire against them, which I'll get to here later. The Blues, they need to slow them down. The Blues need to slow the game down. They need to be more aggressive. They need to put people in the boards, slow down the puck, slow down the passing, no outlets. Can't let McKinnon get free. Can't let the offense get started. But I just don't think that St. Louis has it in them to make that happen. So I'm going to take the Avalanche in 5. And then we're going to go to Vegas versus Minnesota. Minnesota has a nice little rookie in Kirill Kaprizov. Now the question is can they get help? Can they get him help all throughout the postseason, however long they may go? Can they capitalize also? They've done really well against Vegas, so can they capitalize on their regular season success against Vegas? Vegas has had some trouble with these guys, but they do have a really good lineup. They have Andre Fleury in net having a really good season. Several other weapons on their team that have carried them into the position they're in right now, being the second best record in the league. And while the Wild do have some real good weapons on their team as well, I think Vegas pulls it out. I think Vegas in 6, just because the Wild have had so much success that they will get a few games off. Okay, now that's gonna take care of the first round matchups. So we've got Toronto versus Edmonton. We've got Carolina versus Tampa Bay. We've got Boston and Pittsburgh, and we've got we got Colorado and Vegas. Now, I'm just going to go through a quick last couple rounds, and then I'm going to get to my Stanley Cup champion overall. So we got Toronto and Edmonton. I just have a feeling Edmonton's going to do a bit too much to Toronto. Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. I have a feeling they're going to just amp up the pressure. And Toronto in the postseason has never really had a whole lot of success. They won a playoff series in my predictions, but that's as far as they go. I'm going to take Edmonton in 6. I'm going to take Carolina in 6 over Tampa Bay. Vasilevsky can only do so much. While they do have a lot of weapons on their offense, I just have a feeling Carolina's just been the better team. They've been the better team all season. Tampa Bay has had issues with the lower hanging fruit in their division, like Detroit and Columbus. So I just have a feeling Carolina's just the better team, and they will push through in 6 games. I have a feeling. I think in 6. Going on to Pittsburgh and Boston. Pittsburgh, I think their run ends here as well. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, I don't think they're going to have the goaltending to keep up with Boston. Boston has a really deadly first line, and I have a feeling it's going to show in this series. I've got Boston in 7. It's going to be a close series, but I've got Boston in 7, and I'm going to take Vegas in 7 over Colorado. I really like the Vegas squad over the last few seasons, and Colorado maybe their aggressive nature gets the better of them here. Marc-Andre Fleury maybe shuts them out. I have Vegas in 7 as well. So that's going to set up Vegas and Carolina in the in one semifinal, and that's Edmonton and Boston in the other semifinal. And in the finals, I've got Boston beating Edmonton. Again, the goaltending is going to carry the load here for Boston, and I have a feeling their offense is going to click at the right time, and they're going to be the first representative in the championship, playing for the Stanley Cup final, or playing in the Stanley Cup final. And I've got Carolina over Vegas. Carolina, I just have a feeling the weapons are just too much. I feel like they're going to make Fleury, while he's going to play a really good series, I would imagine, I have a feeling Carolina's just going to, they just have too many weapons, and too many goals are probably going to be scored here. So I've got Carolina in 6, and I've got Boston in 6 over Edmonton, and it's going to set up Boston versus Carolina, who I have Carolina winning in 5 games, just because I've seen Carolina play all season. They've been dominant all season. And of course, I'm going to be rooting them on the whole way. Maybe it's my bias that I'm going to take Carolina here, because with their support from last year's playoff run, it's only fair that I give it right back. So it's maybe my bias, but their team is really good, and I don't see them losing here. I don't see them losing in the Stanley Cup final. The only issue I may see is their goaltending might not have the experience, especially considering they've been starting a little less experienced goalie most of the season. But yeah, I've got Carolina taking it in the Stanley Cup final to win the Stanley Cup in 5 games over Boston. And well, if you guys, I hope you guys liked the video. I hope it was fairly entertaining for you. I know I'm just rambling to the camera, but that's kind of the style I'm going for this channel. But if you happen to have any predictions of your own, feel free to leave them down in the comments. If you like what I had to say, feel free to like the video, and I will see y'all in the next one. See ya.